Goeienaand, vriende. Good evening everybody. Molweni, Bazalwane. Ons wil vanaand vir die hartlik welkom sê hier by hierdie baie spesiale geleentheid, besonderse geleentheid. We want to welcome all of you at this very special occasion. I think in the academic's life, the inaugural lecture, in a sense, represents one of the highlights of her or his career. And so, as a faculty, we want to acknowledge your presence here tonight at this very special occasion in the life of Professor Anita Cloete. Vriende, en hier wat aansluit aanlyn, ons wil vanaand vlugtig 'n paar mense erken. We want to acknowledge the presence of a few people as we welcome you. In the first place, of course, wonderful occasion. Ons wil ook haar moeder verwelkom vanaand, wat hierdie geleentheid ook kan meemaak saam met Professor Cloete, en ook van haar familie, haar niggies, familie wat ver gekom het om hier saam met haar en saam met ons dit te kan vier. Ek is seker daarvan, jy is baie trots op haar, en as familie dat u ook hierdie oomblik beleef in 'n sekere sin as 'n erkenning vir haar prestasie, maar ook haar ontwikkeling as academicus. Dear friends, I want to acknowledge many colleagues who are here, many who have joined online. I've seen some of the husbands and the wives of colleagues here. Ek sien vorige docente hier, professors, ex-colleagues of ours who still remain part of the community. We want to welcome many ministers who are here, colleagues that have perhaps journeyed with Professor Cloete, perhaps many ministers who were formed by the teaching of Professor Anita Cloete. A warm welcome to you as well. I've seen, ek het van die ringsleraars ook hier vanaand gesien, collega's wat saam met haar gedien het. En dan natuurlijk, baie vriende van haar is hier, friends who have joined us tonight on this special occasion, friends who are joining online, who are not able to be here, a warm welcome to you. Then, dear friends, we are tonight honored to have the award-winning Eerste Rivier Youth Choir, who will also, in a sense, worship, minister to us as a community. Professor Cloete, that she pursued for many years, was teaching youth ministry, and of course, in the lecture you'll see how it evolved. So a warm welcome also to the Eerste Rivier Youth Choir. En dan, vorige decaans wat hier is, besonder Professor Nico Koopman. Professor Koopman het saam met Professor Cloete gejourney vanaf Huguenot College tot by Stellenbosch, as een van haar vorige dekane ook, my voorganger hier by Stellenbosch, en Professor Koopman is vanaand hier in sy kapasiteit as visierektor vir sosiale impak, transformasie en personeel, en Professor Koopman verteenwoordig ook die rektoraat vanaand. Hy staan in vir die rektor. Baie welkom, Professor Koopman, en baie dankie ook vir u kollegialiteit, maar ook vir die mentorskap ook aan Professor Cloete oor die jare. En dan laastens wil ons erkenning dan gee ook aan Professor Christo Tesnaar. Professor Tesnaar, eintlik die drie wat hier sit, moet ek nou sê, is kom van Huguenot College af. Hulle het so saam geloop. Ek het vroeër gesien vir Dr. Llewellyn McMaster ook hier, die moderator van die VGK, en hulle is ou Huguenot College kollegas. En vanaand, professor Christo Tesnaar gaan dan ook 'n woord spreek oor die pad wat professor Cloete geloop het. So vriende, met hierdie paar woorde wil ons u almal hartlik wel baie spesiale geleentheid sal wees vir ons almal as gemeenskap, as fakulteit en universiteit, maar dan ook as kerklike gemeenskap. Ons verwelkom u as fakulteitsbestuur en ons glo dat dit 'n baie spesiale geleentheid sal wees. Ek gee dan oor aan professor Christo Tesnaar, wat dan verder amper sê ek die diens gaan lei, wat vir ons verder sal lei in die program. Professor Christo Tesnaar.
Good evening, everybody. It is a big privilege for me and an honor to introduce Prof. Anita. I just don't want to spoil this evening, so I want to do it as proper as possible. Prof. Cloete completed a diploma at the Bible School in 1992 and thereafter performed missionary work for 4 years. She continued her theological studies at the Untitled College that was part of UNISA during that time, obtaining her master's and doctoral degrees during that time. It was during that time that I met her as a first-year student in the youth work class in 1997. And it was not long that I realized that this is a very committed and a very intelligent student, somebody who took it very seriously to study, to read, and to make a difference. It was also during that time that I had the privilege to be a study leader during her master's studies and also during her doctoral studies. And also I had the privilege with Dr. McMaster, Prof. Nico Koopman, who's here this evening as well, and other colleagues in social work who's also here, just to say that we had the privilege to teach with her at the Untitled College during that time. After 8 years, she joined the Department of Practical Theology and Missiology at Stellenbosch University. Her research focus developed into 3 key areas, namely youth ministry within a congregational context, education and technology, and religion and media. In her research on youth ministry in a congregational context, congregational, family, relational, and intergenerational approaches. Her research on education and technology aims at illuminating the complex nature and ambiguous effect of technology on the training of ministers and education in general. In her research on religion and media, she dissects the complex nature of technology and the impact on community, spiritual formation, religious authority, and everyday living. Between 2007 and 2022, she participated in 16 international and 20 national conferences. She has supervised 17 research assignments, 12 master's theses, 3 doctoral studies, and 1 postdoctoral fellowship, and is currently supervising another 5 doctoral candidates. She received the Rector's Award in 2015 and is an NRF-rated scholar with several national and international publications. She is the section editor for practical theology of the Stellenbosch Theological Journal and a member of several academic societies. Now, on a lighter note, you will also appreciate that I said something earlier about Prof. Cloete, but there's one ongoing research project that you might not be aware of that is her interest, and that is in motor cars. She's always in the process of doing research on motor cars and is very knowledgeable on the detailed specifications and what is a good buy or not. So, if you are perhaps in a need personal assistance during the purchase of a new car, be assured that she will give you up-to-date research advice to make the best decisions. Anita, Prof. Cloete, it was a privilege and an honor to journey with you as a student and as a colleague at the Huguenot College. And it is still a privilege and an honor to continue journeying with you as a colleague, a scholar, a researcher, and a friend. May tonight be a very special experience for you, and may you also enjoy the blessing of the Lord during this evening. I didn't want to preach, but let me stop there. We look forward to your inaugural lecture this evening. But before we get to that very specific slot in this program, I would just like to ask you all to listen quite carefully to the award-winning Urksa Eerstrivier South Pretorius with the opening prayer, and then after Prof. Anita Cloete will deliver her lecture.
Let us pray together. Lord, our God, thank you for your presence. We believe that you are here with us. Thank you this evening in your name, in the name of the Father, the Son, Jesus, and the Holy Spirit. Lord, thank you for your faithfulness. Lord, thank you for your grace in our lives. We honor you tonight, Lord, our God. Lord, we thank you for this wonderful moment of tonight. Lord, thank you that Prof. Anita Cloete have been promoted to full professor. Thank you for her life and calling. Thank you for all her work on different platforms. We acknowledge, celebrate, and honor her tonight. Lord, bless tonight's inaugural lecture of Professor Cloete. Bless every aspect of this evening. Bless all her work in the future. Guide her according to your will. Thank you, Lord, for your love and provision in her life. Thank you for the great impact that she has made on my life and the lives of so many others. Lord, please bless this occasion tonight. I pray this in Jesus' name alone. Amen.
Good evening, friends and colleagues. Samba, can you move this? I can't see the people properly. Sorry, I'm a bit short. It's very beautiful, Marita, thank you. Yes, just like that, people can still see it. Good evening, friends, and thank you so much for coming. This is really, I think, a moment not only for me, but definitely also for the people that walk this road with me, and it's quite a long road, I suppose, because just the other day I attended a service with Melanie sitting there, and I had to ask her, when did I meet you guys? Because I just realized I must not go very far, and she said it was 20 years ago. So thank you so much for being here. When you come to a moment as this, you're not here alone. None of us are alone on this road of life, right? So I just want to sort of start off and say a few thank yous, and I want to apologize. I will not be able to mention all the names that I actually should name. But I hope the fact that I've invited you, those also online, I'm sure they can hear me, that I'm thankful. The fact that I included you in the invitation said that I still remember what you've done for me and that you still mean something for me today. But I want to start, when I started at Stellenbosch University, Prof. Koopman and guest, it was in the time of Professor Russell Botman. I started here 2008. And I remember I was new to Stellenbosch. I had to come one Saturday to figure out how do you drive in Stellenbosch, because daai is 'n probleem, né? Jy kry nie parking nie, jy weet nie waar, die een oomblik is jy in 'n een-rigtingstraat, twee rigting, die volgende oomblik is jy in 'n een rigting. So ek het gekom 14, 15 jaar gelede een Saterdag en kom kyk hoe werk dinge hier. So when I came here, I really didn't know anybody. It was me and Christo, and the names that I knew was the names that I saw in books and read about in books, but I didn't know people personally. I think that was actually a plus, because then you can just be yourself, because they must accept you for who you are. But I want to acknowledge, when I came here, Prof. Russell Botman was director. And I remember having him as director at the time, I felt representative at the top level of the university, just because it was him in a certain sense. And I remember when I came here and the focus on hope, I remember the bursaries, human dignity. And also his strong focus on equal access. That he said, ek is seker julle onthou die quote wat hy, one of his famous quote was, ons kan net gerus voel as die eienaar, die plaaseienaar se seun en die plaaswerker se dogter, as hulle beide gelyke kans het om by 'n universiteit of by 'n tersiêre inrigting in te kom. En dit was my tipe taal. Ek weet wat jy sê as jy praat van 'n plaas. Ek kom van 'n plaas, so ek weet presies. En ek weet ook die enorme verskil in die verhouding en resources wat daar bestaan tussen iemand wat 'n plaaswerker se kind is en iemand wat die plaaswerker eienaar van die plaas is. So daai goed het my gegrip reg in die begin. Prof Russell didn't know me, I think, in person, but those things, if leaders say things like that and sort of have a vision, it actually takes you with as people that works here. And I remember those. And another thing that he keep on saying was the intergenerational, but for the generation behind us. And even for those that is already gone before. So that in youth work, for instance, is a big thing, the intergenerational. So I want to acknowledge Professor Russell Boatman right in the beginning. Then I also want to sort of acknowledge tonight my colleague and sister, Mary Ann Plaatjes. Ek onthou dat sy baie graag haar intreerede wou gee. Maar dit was nie vir haar beskore nie. Maar ek onthou vanaand haar groot impak op my lewe. En hoe sy met vreugde moeilike take gedoen het. Hoe sy met die grootste toewyding en met moed gedoen het, terreine betree het, wat vir vroue nie beskore was in die verlede nie. So ek herinner ook vanaand vir ons almal in haar lewe. Ek wil ook vanaand, al my vriende wat hier is, baie van my vriende was basies voorheen kollegas, mense met wie ek saam studeer het, mense wat aanlyn is, baie van die kollegas met wie ek by Untitled College saamgewerk het, is hier in die gehoor, en dankie vir julle vriendskap. Die lewe is maar eensaam as 'n mens nie 'n paar goeie vriende het nie. So hulle is 'n goeie support system, afstand het niks gedoen in ons vriendskap nie. Hulle sit hier reg voor en ja, en ek sluit eintlik by mense soos daardie vriende ook vir Professor Christo Tesnaar in wat vanaand, ons het 'n baie lang pad, I always say forever in a day, want soos hy gesê het, dit is nou, toe hy vir my ontmoet was nog langer as 20 jaar, dit was baie lang terug, en so ook met Prof Koopman, ons kom baie, maar die input wat hulle gegee het in my lewe was van waarde. Ek onthou, Prof Koopman, daai tyd toe ek begin swat het, ons nie op rekenaars gewerk en nie, ons het geskryf, okay? En dit was 'n mission, as ek nou daaraan dink. En Prof Koopman het altyd so hier aan die onderkant goed geskryf, maar ek het vir jare nie verstaan eintlik wat daar staan nie. Ek het gedink hy is mos nou 'n goeie mens, dit sal seker net mooi goed wees. Maar ek onthou hierso in my 3de jaar Prof, toe sien ek daai een lyntjie, toe ek hom nou al geleer, nê? Toe staan daar so een lyntjie, niets. Jy moet verder studeer die years, and I want to sort of also say thank you to my colleagues here at the faculty. My home department, I saw my colleagues, I think they got stuck in traffic from Cape Town. There they are waving. Yes, sure, the support that I get from my home department, I'm a very friendly person, but I'm very difficult. If I put up a fight, I put up a fight. So yes, but they support me, they love me, and they care for me in a way that I sometimes just, it's amazing that people can sort of journey together with you. And thank you so much for all the things in my department specifically. Also in the other departments, I took the opportunity to work across departments. I worked with people in Old and New Testament, believe it or not. I worked with people in, I remember Prof Punt participated in one of my research projects, and also I want to acknowledge Prof Louis. He said he could not be here tonight, but he was actually my academic mentor in Old Testament for a few years. He sort of got me into the game and teach me the finer things of what I should do. Yes, and I'm also currently working with colleagues in systematic theology, Prof Oslo there at the back, as an editor, section editor. So I think that kind of cooperation actually shaped me quite a bit, because I didn't stay within my department. I actually reached out, and it's really a privilege for me. But lastly, and not least, I want to say thank you to my family. My mother's here tonight, is sitting in front. I'm sure you will be able to figure out who she is. Now, I remember that I started to read as a child because I saw my mother read, and I thought it must be something good if she do it. And I start with reading her books, of course. And that time, it was those thick Murray books. Phew, it was a struggle to get through them, but I spelled through all of them on primary school already, because then I had to start reading. I saw her reading, and I started reading as well. At that time, I kept on doing it simply because I really don't like washing dishes and stuff. And I also was never interested in making food. I remember, because those are the traditional things that you must know as a woman, you know, those, and I just like try to get away from those. But yeah, later, and I remember as a teenager, I realized that books can actually take you places that you will never be able to go in your lifetime. And I sort of realized the educational value of reading, because there's so much to know, and there's so little time to know, to come to know it. So I read everything. I remember Friday nights, those that comes in I grew up in the 70s, 80s, and Friday nights I went to one of my grandmothers, en sy het gelees Ruiter in Swart. Nou julle daai boekies, hy swart boekies. As jy klaar is, as jy jou hande pak swart. But I mean, I read everything that I saw them reading because I thought it's a good thing. And that's the way my journey actually began. It doesn't begin when you're much old, it begins actually very, very early. So I want to thank my mother. They supported me throughout the years. I was more away from home than at home. And when I came home, I'm always reading, but except that's what I do, that's who I am. Later it became who I am. In the beginning, I was just trying to hide from duties, but later I realized that is who I became, and that's who. So thank you so much for all my brothers and my sisters. I've got 3 siblings, 2 brothers and 1 sister. We just had a funeral in the family not so long ago, very far in the Northern Cape, and they couldn't get leave to come again. But I'm sure he knows something is happening tonight. So he will also think about us. But all of them played a very big role in my life by just accepting what I do. I remember when I was doing my honors, and then I enrolled for my master's, and my father said, look, I understand education is important, but I didn't think you should now make it a job to Ek het nie bedoel, jy moet jou lewe lang studeer nie, en hy het nie verstaan dat ek werk en studeer, hy kon nie lekker. So when I got my PhD, he came and he said, now he understands. So yes, thank you so much, friends. Let's turn to my lecture for tonight. You've got your page there. I would like you to actually engage with it, the booklet. You had either Afrikaans one or an English one. I will read mostly from the English simply because I have wrote it in English and now it's kind of in my head in English, but ek is eintlik goed ek is Afrikaans. So as ek hier en daar vashak, dan is dit maar nou net uit my agtergrond, maar en ek hoop u die koor geniet. Ek het gedink soos ons in 'n Makolan sê, dat ons dit nou nie so gobo maak nie, né? Dat is nou nie net lees nie, maar dit is nou ook jeugtelik wees. Met ander woorde, so thank you so much for your contribution tonight. So as you would heard from Professor Tesnar, the last 10 years I focused on technology and religion, and also technology and education. So tonight I want to talk about being human in a technology-driven world, checkmate, or opportunity for social responsibility. So in my previous work, I emphasized the social embeddedness of technology and the ambiguous impact on religious and educational institutions. So I just want to sort of quickly look back, so you can just move on for me. So I want to do it in this way. I will start quickly by looking back, then I will just say where I sort of fit into tonight's paper at the present, and then at the end I will just go and say what I think we should do in the future. Okay, so there we got it. So first of all, the interactive nature of technology could create different opportunities, for instance, in education, for more active participation of students. But the very same characteristic can create opportunities for students to use technology for non-educational purposes also in class. So what I try to do in the first place is just to take you back on what I've already done and just make a point in terms of the fact that the use of technology is never linear. So you say it will help students to be active, but the same activity can be something else. So they can be on Facebook and you think they're looking up the word that you are talking about, but they can do something else. And it's the very same device, the very same ability of the technology. And the use of, many times we say technology will make students give broader access, and that's true. If you look at UNISA, the numbers, Prof, where you come from, the numbers are very high. But it doesn't automatically mean that these students that enroll for online teaching have the skills. It's not about capabilities, it's the basic skills that you need, because it's a different tool. It's not the normal in-person thing. So you need a very specific kind of skill set to engage learning online. And many times those students lack those skills. Here at us, where we're residential, we also have to teach students this basic thing, how to use. So although it can create access and sort of bring students in, it can also make students feel, now I'm not capable to do what I'm supposed to do. So and the other point is the use of technology in education result in a need for an increased budget, Prof Koopman, to maintain and upgrade infrastructure and upskill both lecturers and students. Just think about all the workshops that we've done during COVID just to get us to be able to do everything online. It took quite a bit of a budget, I suppose, and also time from us, all of us. While the use of technology doesn't automatically guarantee effective teaching and learning. So I try to say, sometimes all the way go both ways. And then the other area that I've done is religion, so I just, the next paragraph, focus on that. Online religious communities are primarily formed by individual choice, based on personal needs and preferences, and commitment is often fragile as people can leave anytime. While we're now stuck here in the building, the people at home can go and make coffee and do a lot of other things and come back, and they're not so focused as you are, so it's not the same. Although they're also included from overseas and everywhere, and that's the wonderful thing about it, right? But at the same time, it also creates other opportunities that you actually don't want. You want people to maybe tune in. Online religious communities give more authority to users. In other words, the users the choice now. Once you've created the platform, the user of the platform decide what he or she will do or not do. And that makes the whole commitment thing very problematic. While offline communities situated the power within the individual. Maybe you, halfway through the lecture, realize maybe this, I shouldn't have come or something. And now you can't move because now you have to listen to me. So you see the difference between being online and being in person. Online communities often, I'm talking about religious communities here specifically, represent a mixture of different religious traditions, which is not necessarily bad, but it can work out negatively on an offline community. Because that is informed by also individual choice, and it can result in what we sometimes call broccoli religion. In other words, that mixed fruit. We know the mixed fruit. In the end of the day, online communities, they pick and choose, and they put their own religion together, and they have a religion that's sometimes not recognizable for offline traditional religious communities. It hopefully becomes clear that the impact of technology on society and on everyday living is not linear. Therefore, the process involved in the development of sophisticated technology requires continuous constructive engagement to establish a reasonable understanding of the nature of technology as medium whereby life is mediated. I want to argue that such reflection becomes more urgent as we begin to understand the significant impact of technology and its ability to enhance, but at the same time reduce our being as humans. I would like to plot the discussion against the backdrop of the image of a chess game, where two actors have limited opportunities to make moves on the board to progress in the game. and eventually complete the game when one is the winner. Checkmate in the game of chess means that moves in the game have become limited. The king is attacked, and there is no possible move to safeguard the king. It basically means the game is over, and as Ebba sings, the winner takes it all. Although I don't necessarily see technology as an opponent or enemy of humanity, I do think it is a formidable actor that needs to be reckoned with on the playground of life. In the game of chess, each move counts and could determine the outcome. It would help if you can imagine the serious faces of the players and how deeply they think before they make their next move. However, the game doesn't depend only on the act of thinking. However important that may be, more is needed. Each player has the responsibility to make a move. We as humans are participants in a project that is bigger than our individual life, where we must decide which values will inform our participation. As human beings, we are interconnected and in a direct or indirect way in a relationship with one another and with nature. I would like to describe this connectedness here as our responsibility towards the kind of life we created and in which we participate. The goal of this paper, they also got the goal of the paper, is to demonstrate a continuous need for reflection on the reciprocal relationship between being human and technology, and religion and technology. In fulfilling this aim, I first look at key frameworks. In these frameworks includes transhumanism, posthumanism, and singularity. After that, I would like to sort of establish what are the aims of transhumanism, there we go, and posthumanism and singularity. What are the values that informs these frameworks? And then lastly, I also want to sort of emphasize again the complex nature of technology, because behind technology there's a lot of processes we don't understand, although we use the gadgets and things that we have in our hand. And in the end, I would like to, as I promised earlier, I would like to make some, how do we go forward from here, the end. Oh, sorry. Okay, sorry for. So technology, at first I just want to look quickly at technology. What does it mean in a technology world, driven world? To critique technology is difficult because we are so dependent on it, and it cannot live without it. Although the use of technology and different forms of technology gives us the feeling that we are independent, we are becoming more dependent on technology. The benefits of technology is widely known. I just think about how it bridged the gap during the COVID-19 and enable us to continue our work online by teaching fully online. But the trick here is initially technology had a defensive role, but with genetic engineering and nanotechnology, this function has changed, as the focus is now on creating something entirely new. As Hirschfeld is stating the new products of technology are actually there, it's on the board. The new products of modern technology do not simply disclose or shape nature, but replace nature. The status of technology in contemporary culture is seeking satisfaction and authorization from technology. In other words, it's a totally different status than that it had earlier in our lives. We often think of technology merely as products that we can buy and use. But these products come with a certain set of values, what they can be used for and how to use them. Moreover, only a few role players are involved in the production process. In other words, sorry, I've got this wrong all the time. So there's a very complex process in the development of technology with what we call about methods and techniques that's behind it, which we don't understand what is actually going on there. And only a few role players are involved in development. So that sometimes there is a value-laden process that we know nothing about, and most of us are not involved in that. We receive the product, and then there's a process of accepting it, and it becomes easier to accept it because it builds on a previous product. So this product creates a need in us. The need was not necessarily there, But the previous product, they hate sometimes that need to have another one, and therefore sometimes the accepting process is easier. And then another process that's more also complicated is how we use it. So now one product lands in the hands of thousands and millions, hands of people. And how we then use it become also problematic. So it's a very simplistic way now to say a very complex process, but that is more or less what I have in mind. Apart from the value-laden process that is inherently part of a world driven by technology, another layer of this social embeddedness is the economic level. It is safe to argue that technological development is firmly embedded within existing political and economic power and should serve the agenda of these masters. Despite many technological advances, South Africa remains one of the most unequal societies in the world. Technological development is important as an economic and cultural force, but are the stakes not too high if it deepens inequality instead of alleviating it? I would like to turn this inquiry now to the relationship between technology and everyday living. Now, I'm a practical theologian. We are not so much interested in abstract conversations, but we bring it down that you can talk with us. And I want to talk about technology in our everyday life, because that's where it plays out, right? Although it is common knowledge that technology affects every sphere of your life, it does not necessarily mean that we critically reflect on how the use thereof impact on our everyday living. I guess it's easier to formulate a vision of the future controlled by technology than to dissect the impact thereof on everyday living. Although several applications promise that we could be connected at any time, anywhere, it does not necessarily include in-person contact, but rather machine-operated communication. This hyperconnectivity carries with it the benefits and the burden of being available all the time. This overconnectedness may lead to many having scattered and distant virtual connections, but unstable and weak offline and immediate connections. As we continue to migrate to virtual spaces, interpersonal relationships may suffer. When we are, for instance, in the physical presence of others, we struggle to focus on what is happening in the moment. I'm sure you wonder what is happening. Did somebody not look for me? I'm searching for your phone. And we easily ignore people speaking to us, talking to us. We will just ignore them and read on our phones or on our laptops. I think it also becomes almost like a status symbol. People want me somewhere else. I'm needed somewhere else. I can't be here. And it's actually very misleading. It seems that we came to value mediated communication more than in-person communication. Bande argues that human identity is commodified within a technological age. Technology is understood as a commodity that is only available to those who can pay for it. This leads to the commodification of human identity that is no longer depending on our intrinsic values of being human, but rather on the extrinsic qualities that could be acquired. This shift in identity formation is described as the thingification of human identity, when people are reduced to things that can be bought. According to Banda, the essence of human identity become anchored on commodities owned by the individual or marketable functions fulfilled by the individual. We became so used to taking instructions from machines. I mean, many children won't listen to their parents, but they will listen to what their phone says or what the computer says. They will definitely listen. It's more interesting for them, I don't know. So we take instructions from machines. We don't think about it. We store our personal information on digital devices, but we have to live with the constant risk of being hacked. And we know that is one of the biggest crimes currently because we're moving life online. Let us now turn to the frameworks that I promised earlier. So there's the first framework, transhumanism. Transhumanism is providing us with a vision of perhaps the most dramatic scenario for transcending the boundaries of human nature as we came to know it. Peters understands the aim of transhumanism as a recontextualization of humanity in relation to technology, which operates on three levels, namely a metaphysical, a psychological, and an ethical level. The metaphysical level implies that the world is continuously involved in a complex process of evolution, while the psychological level holds the view that humans instinctively want to evolve for the sake of their own well-being and survival. According to the ethical level, humans should foster their will and ability to evolve and find meaning and purpose. In his fascinating reflection on the relationship between technology and the future of humanity, Harare argues that 3 stories has been told to the world. I'm not sure if you know Harare. He's a very interesting guy. I listened to a lot of podcasts from him, the historian from Israel. And he says all the things that we believe are actually stories that we've been told. And we believe in these stories and we make it something. He's not a Christian, obviously. But he said we believe these things, a lot of these stories, even the marker that goes up and down. He said there's actually, it's not like so complicated, but we believe it, that it's complicated, and therefore we just believe what they tell us. So he said there's only 3 stories that the world has been told. The one is the fascist story, the communist story, and the liberal story. Today, he argues that only the liberal story remains because both the other 2 are collapsed. And he said we have the responsibility to recreate and update the story of the world in which we live in. The acceleration of technological development could be understood as part of fulfilling this task. Transhumanism could be viewed as an adjusted liberal project or vision that lost faith in the globalized idea thereof and now instead emphasizes individual choice. Cahill elaborates on the worldview that informs transhumanism and explains that it understands human flourishing as experiencing only pleasure, and therefore suffering needs to be eliminated. This world characterized by pleasure in the absence of suffering will be made possible by technological advances. Moreover, it's the responsibility of humans to create this world where individual freedom and liberty are fundamental pillars. Let's now turn to posthumanism. Okay, I'll never get this right. So while transhumanism focuses primarily on the extension of human life, posthumanism signals going beyond being human as we know it. According to Charles, posthumanism anticipates the arrival of singularity. For those who watch movies, was a movie Singularity. Did you watch it? It's a very weird story, but that's actually more or less where they anticipate where we will go. This process will be a result of the acceleration and increasing levels of abstraction of technological advances that could change being human beyond recognition. Rapid technological changes therefore could result in irreversible change of life as we know it. Singularity also refers to the integration of human and machine. To reach this state of existence, humans need technological intervention to save us sort of from ourselves and transcend our current physical, emotional, and cognitive limitations. And major drivers of this project is already at work through artificial intelligence, bioengineering, and nanotechnology. But then, as a theologian, we talk about life, and we talk about things that almost sound theologically correct. Huh? But let us just have a closer look. Simba, can you assist me there? Going down. Oh, I'm going back. I need to go down quickly to comparing the vision. So let us just compare the vision that posthumanism and transhumanism and singularity. Singularity and posthumanism is actually kind of the same thing. Singularity is just going the final way. So mind uploading is the final stage of this process. And singularity is actually then merging the being human and machine, becoming as one, and we will not be able to differentiate between the two. At first glance, this vision put forward by transhumanism and posthumanism seems good and something from which humankind maybe could benefit. We can only imagine a world without pain and suffering. I mean, that is something we want to escape, don't we? Because we've never had that before. But here's just a reminder of the values of posthumanism. This is the next one. This is a reminder of the values that sort of undergirds the vision of posthumanism. So it's depending on your individual choice. You can decide what you want to do with your life and how you want to do it. But of course, you need to have money. It's not for free. And then human capability to transcend. We have actually the capability to do so, and we must choose to do so. And it's actually a good act. And individual freedom, the liberal project, like we already said. And then some describe this as a condition of disembodiment, which is not the body that we used to know. But let's just compare then the vision of posthumanism with, shortly with theology. And I think the systematic theologians will maybe remember this. So Cahill drew on the work of Karl Barth, and he said, but you can't look at life this way. But if you look at that comparison, it looks very close till you read the end sentence of theology, the theology one. You will see there's a fundamental difference in terms of how you... So the posthumanist vision of human life is a personal possession, and individuals have autonomy to make decisions regarding their life according to their own desires and interests. But the theologians say human life is alone, that needs to be respected and lived before God and in fellowship with other human beings. Life is good and should be protected and extended according to humanists at all costs. Yes, life is good, but not the ultimate good. And therefore, health and longevity should not become the highest goal in life. Posthumanism, humans can change the world and themselves as they find fit. But theologians say humans are creative, but such creativity needs to be used in correspondence to God's work and not independently. Autonomy and freedom of choice are ultimate values, but theologians say humans are free to choose to be obedient to God. Posthumanists say the body is reduced, we can reduce the body to a mind and a memory, but in theology we say anthropology is grounded in Christology. In other words, it's not something that we can control. At first glance, I think the posthumanist and the theological vision show similarities, but it's only at a closer and deeper look that it becomes clear that there are fundamental differences. Peter described the difference between the posthumanist vision and that of theology as becoming and coming. While posthumanism envisioned a future made possible through human becoming engendered and controlled by technology, the theological vision is about the coming of God's kingdom, which is not under our control and therefore a mystery. It should therefore not be a surprise that religion is often regarded as an obstacle in the way of the posthumanist dream, because religion assists people in accepting that by providing comfort in times of grief. Religion is often accused of living in the past by resisting change. So, is it checkmate or opportunity for social responsibility? How do we establish what move to make? Due to the complex and value-laden nature of technology, the unintended consequences could be significant for the human agenda. This implies there are aspects that will not be known beforehand, but have significant impact on who we are becoming. Accelerated manufacturing use of technology make a moving target, and the impact on who we are becoming is not clear at the best of times. Let's move to the last part. Where to from here? According to technology, avoiding technology is not an option, as we need it in our everyday living. And we can all testify how it has improved our lives. I mean, I can't imagine driving without Google Maps anymore. I just can't find my way. So that shows how it's usable but also dependent on it. Therefore, I would like to make a few suggestions on responsible living in a technology-driven world. First of all, I think we need to learn the skill to live with tension by embracing on the one hand, but also resisting at the same time. Technology is here to stay, and so is religion. Fenter suggests two postures for theology to engage with emerging technologies, namely to embrace what technology offers, but at the same time to resist that which is not acceptable. This is not an easy task, as this seems to be the exact opposite task, and therefore we need wisdom to discern what to do when. So let us, from a theological perspective, The community is important, and I talk about communities here specifically, religious communities and also educational communities, because those are the big communities in our society that impact and shape people. So these communities have the responsibility to assist us in faithful living, in meaningful living. And we have to develop the skills to live with ambiguity. I suggest attentive living, discernment, and dialogue as theological processes and spiritual practices to inform our everyday living. Attentive living, we have to live more attentive lives where we try to ascertain times in which we are living. Being present in the moment is something that we struggle with, but it could assist us to live more authentic lives. The processes behind transhumanism and especially posthumanism are called repetification and social acceleration. Subsequently, we start living in fear of losing out and of a lack of time. This leaves us time poor. Although freedom is promised, acceleration results in competition and imbalanced lives characterized by frenetic activity. Erling Kagge, a Norwegian explorer, described these times we are living in as the age of noise, where silence does not exist. He argues that we need silence not simply because it's better than noise, but because we are losing bits of ourselves and are becoming addicted to all the distractions we must deal with constantly. We are familiar with the phrase speed kills as part of the Arrive Alive campaign. I guess speed kills in more than one way, not only as part of driving, but also when we don't reflect on what it takes to live a meaningful life. I wish to argue that we need similar spiritual processes that slow us down to reflect on where we are heading so fast. We need to revisit and even revise our theological literacy, our knowledge and skills to practice attentive living that is informed by discernment. Venter articulates this talk as follows: the theologian should read the signs of the times and rethink the way theology speaks. What is discernment? Although discernment takes place in our everyday life, it becomes paramount during times of rapid change that brings us at crossroads where we must contemplate on the way forward. It includes reflection on our experiential reality and should therefore result in practical wisdom that provides guidance for everyday living. Another way to describe discernment is by explaining what it's not. Discernment is not a power play where the ideas and the instructions of people in power counts alone. It's not only a cognitive process, but includes our experiences and emotions. It focuses not only on the future, but an important aspect of discernment is looking back to the past, remembering God's presence and faithfulness in the past, and recognizing His presence in the present. It's exactly this recognition of God's presence in the past that ignites the living hope that God is also present now and will provide in the future. And that gives discernment a contemplative gaze. Discernment is therefore more than just to be judgmental, and hopefully I've not been judgmental tonight, but it's more than just to figure out what is good and what is bad. But it's really when we are at crossroads, what is the best choice that we can make going forward. Discernment, I argue, necessitates dialogue. We can't figure it out on our own. Theology can be understood as a dialogical enterprise. A value partner, I think, is the arts. Considering the vision to live forever is articulated by transhumanism and posthumanism. The song by the famous rock group Queen comes to mind. I don't know if you're familiar with Queen. If you don't know Queen, you don't know a lot of things. But Queen had this one song, Who Wants to Live Forever? You can just go there. The song, I quote a few sections from the song. There is no time for us. There is no place for us. What is the thing that builds our dreams that slips away from us? There is no chance for us. It's all decided for us. This world has one sweet moment set aside for us. Who wants to live forever? Who wants to live forever? forever is our today. The arts may assist us in asking the best questions for our time. I find this song a good example of how the artist seems to try to engage with death. One of the members wrote the song after he saw a wife dying in his husband's arms, and it was just like overwhelming, and he wrote the song. So he engaged with the question of death while accepting it at the same time. In the end, the question is not about death, but why we want to live and do so forever. What will be good about living forever is proposed by post-humanism in singularity. That is kind of questions that we have to deal with. I want to conclude the lecture. We are invited tonight not to think of the vision as articulated by transhumanism and posthumanism as something that does not concern us, because most people will be excluded from the benefit it promises. We are encouraged to live with the ambiguity produced by technological advances with a dual response, namely to embrace and resist. Attentive living, discernment, and dialogue are suggested as spiritual processes to guide us. Technological development is happening fast and is infiltrating all spheres of life, and we have a personal and a communal responsibility to make wise moves to prevent a situation that could be described as checkmate, where technology becomes the single power that dictates the life and the values by which we live. I thank you.
Nee, professor, dit was nie te lank nie. Professor Reginel, colleagues of the faculty, colleagues from other faculties and institutions, colleagues from the church, various churches, students of the faculty here, students from other institutions, also colleagues and students from Huguenot College, friends of Prof. Cloete, family of Prof. Cloete, and specifically mother of Prof. Cloete. Is lekker om vir u weer te sien. En Prof. Cloete self. My task as member of the rectorate is not to do a theological response to your lecture, but to hand this certificate which affirms university. I do this task on behalf of Senate. You may be seated. Now, you know I'm not only a member of the rectorate, I'm a theologian and a dominee, en ek moet maar my ou praatkansie ook kry. So, colleagues, when we have an inaugural address, it's also an opportunity for the university to remind ourselves about the vocation of a professor in any field, and specifically the vocation of a full professor. Full professor is the most senior academic at the university. When Professor Russell Botman, under his leadership, uitgeleese Professor David, we then very seriously said, this is not a senior professor. 2 years ago even, we decided that the level of a full professor and a distinguished professor are the same. We're on the same level. Ons wil nie afknibbel aan die waardigheid en die senioriteit van vol professor nie. At some universities they do talk about senior professors, and it creates a hierarchy that reduces the worth and the value of full professor. You're a full professor in the field of theology. We know we owe the world good theology. And can I tell you, as someone from this faculty is now working for 7 years in central management, we need good theology. And Prof. Nell, we need this faculty. You make a distinctive contribution, vulnerable. The contribution, the mere presence of this faculty inspires us in ways that are not always communicated back to you, and your role specifically as Dean is highly esteemed. And the role of the type of theology that we heard about tonight is what encourages us on broader level than we can imagine, on campus and through campus, in broader society. Professor Cloete, lekker om vir jou so te sê, en ek het nooit geweet ek skryf so lelikie. Skattie sê al die ou vrye briewe kom maar daar rond lê in hulle huis, niemand kon dit lees nie. Nooit geweet sy het nie verstaan wat ek vir haar sê nie. But may I move to concluding these remarks, Professor Anita. You are a full professor of theology that do your theology through the lens of children and youth. You focus on your work in intergenerational manner. And that opens innovation, creativity, as we saw here tonight. The type of grammar and vocabulary that you bring to the fore. And it is this intergenerational nature of Christian faith, also the faith of other religions and of theology, that drives us forward. We witness the presence here of Prof. Dan Cloete and Anita, a former dean of UWC and father of us. And just last week, during Ascension time, I thought back intergenerationally about a reflection of Dan just after the dawn of democracy. Dan then said, you know, we also now know people in high places, and he said ascension means we know the theology. Anita, you reminded us tonight about the plea of Steve Biko, exactly 50 years ago. He pleaded to Christians in South Africa, and he asked, please bestow upon this society a more human face. You use the categories tonight here: transhuman, post-human, singularity. What does it mean to be human in such a context? You make us think afresh about humaneness, about human dignity, and about being human. You do this work for a decade already, and this is the path that you will follow as a university, to say we need to materialize humaneness in different ways through all our disciplines and faculties. You help us to take up the challenge of Daniel Colt Gilman, the first president of Johns Hopkins University in the United States, when he was inaugurated on 22 February 1876 as president, rector of their university. He portrayed the human faces, or the different dimensions of a society with a human face, to which universities should contribute. And then he said, universities is a reaching out for a better state of society than now exists. It is a dim but indelible impression longing to interpret the laws of creation. It means a wish for less misery among the poor, less ignorance in schools, less bigotry in the temple, less suffering in the hospital, less fraud in business, less folly in politics. It means more study of nature, more love of art, more lessons from history, more security in prosperity, more health in cities, more virtue in the country, more wisdom in legislation, more intelligence, more happiness, more, he says, more religion in conclusion, and together with you, I would say more healthy, more dignifying, more humanizing religion. In conclusion, Anita, you are called to and equipped for this responsibility of full professor. I think Scotty said, ek hoop jy leef dit. You are called to this task, Nita, not so that you must prove yourself. You are called because you have proven yourself already. So now you just do your task, fulfill it without performance anxiety, but with performance joy. And your Hansel here would say, every time that we listen to you, we want to be informed and transformed, inspired and illuminated. And then you would say, as a homiletician, the most important, we want to be filled with delight. And listening to you, looking at you, we were filled and are filled with delight. Enjoy the rest of the journey. Let's applaud her. A wonderful choir.
Prof sien dat die is wat duidelik gemaak dat die van die plaas af is ek die Matthäus is. Maar ons steel 'n bietjie terugvat na die ou dae.
School,
Dear friends, we have come to the end of our proceedings here tonight. And just a small word of thanks to everyone who made it possible. We want to thank also Professor Nico Koopman for your presence on behalf of the Rectorate, and also for the words of reflections, the response to the inaugural lecture of Professor Cloete here tonight. We, as a community, faculty community, and the community gathering here around Professor Cloete, we want to express our appreciation for these words. To Professor Cloete and the family and all the friends who have gathered, you are invited to share a few snacks afterwards. I want to say thank you to the team, Marita Snyman, Bonita Rubain sitting here, and the team who have organized everything. I want to thank Simba also for the technical arrangement, and the team has worked so excellently well on this. And we ask you that you stand as the academic procession leave the building, and you are welcome to join us here tonight. Thank you also to the choir for your presence here, Alexander, and the team. And we will definitely make use of your services again here at the university. Wonderful. So please stand, and then we ask you to remain standing until the academic procession has left.